Let's talk about a ticking time bomb, one that's hidden deep inside your most sensitive data. Now, the threat might seem like it's way off in the future, but here's the kicker. The legal consequences, they're starting right now. This is all about what we're calling post-quantum negligence. So get this, right now, as we speak, the largest data heist in history is happening all around us, and it's happening in total silence. Adversaries are just sucking up everything, your trade secrets, financial records, government comms, you name it. They're grabbing it all and locking it away in a vault they can't even open, at least not yet. But you know what? They're not worried. They're playing the long game because they know the key is coming. And that right there is what makes this cyber threat so unique. The crime is happening today, but the real damage, we won't feel that for years. So let's break down exactly how this whole silent heist works. The strategy has a name, Harvest Now, Decrypt Later, or HNDL for short. And it's brutally simple. Attackers are just vacuuming up massive troves of today's encrypted data. They can't read it, it's just gibberish to them right now, so they're stockpiling it, waiting patiently for the one thing that will make today's strongest encryption totally useless. And make no mistake, the breach is happening now, even if the data won't be exposed for years. So what is this master key they're all waiting for? What's the technology that's going to pop open all of these digital vaults? It's a quantum computer, but not just any quantum computer, one that's powerful enough to absolutely shred today's encryption standards. That moment has a name, Q-Day. And this isn't science fiction anymore. The expert consensus is that a machine like this will probably arrive around the year 2030. That's the deadline. That's when all of today's secrets could suddenly become tomorrow's open books. But you know, this whole HNDL thing, the privacy threat, that's really only half the story. There's a second, and honestly, an even more dangerous threat called Trust Now, Forge Later, or TNFL. So while HNDL is all about stealing secrets from the past, TNFL is about controlling the future. A quantum computer could forge digital signatures. Think about that. It could create fake software updates or issue fraudulent commands to critical infrastructure. The analogy here is perfect. HNDL is like cracking a single safe. TNFL is like getting a master key to the entire building. And these aren't just some abstract, theoretical worries. The top security leaders are sounding the alarm loud and clear. Just listen to Ollie Whitehouse from the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre. He says upgrading to quantum-resistant security isn't just important, it's essential. The work has to start now. This timeline really lays out just how fast this is all moving. Okay, look, 2024. The U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, they've finalized the new standards for quantum-resistant encryption. The tools are literally on the shelf now, and that means that by 2025, the threat is no longer some sci-fi fantasy, it becomes legally foreseeable. Then, boom, Q-Day hits around 2030. And look ahead to 2035, major governments are already mandating a full switch. The clock is absolutely positively ticking. Okay, let's fast forward a bit. Picture this. It's the year 2032. A massive data breach just went public. All this sensitive information that was stolen way back in 2025 has finally been decrypted and exposed. The lawsuits start flying, and this, right here, is where today's inaction is going to come home to roost. And this really gets to the heart of the whole legal problem. A future court is not going to ask, hey, could you predict the future? No way. They're going to ask a much simpler question. What did a reasonable person or a reasonable company know about this quantum threat way back in 2025, and what, if anything, did they do about it? So why do we say that the threat is already foreseeable? Well, the evidence is just overwhelming. We've got public warnings from national security agencies in the US and the UK. We have published official standards for quantum-resistant crypto. We have a solid expert consensus that this risk is real and quantifiable. And maybe most importantly, we know for a fact that state-sponsored actors are already carrying out these H&D attacks. The old "we didn't know" excuse, it's just not going to fly in court. So how does a court actually figure out if an organization was negligent? Well, they often fall back on a classic legal test to basically quantify inaction. It's called the learned hand formula, and honestly, it's way simpler than it sounds. It just weighs three things. First, you've got B, the burden. That's the cost of taking precautions, like upgrading your encryption. Then there's P, the probability that the bad thing is actually going to happen. And finally, L, the gravity of the loss if it does. You know, the financial and reputational nightmare of a massive data breach. And the formula is just simple math. If the burden of acting is less than the probability of harm times the potential loss, then doing nothing is probably negligent. So let's think about that. A post-quantum migration might cost millions, sure, but a breach could easily cost hundreds of millions or even billions. The math is pretty clear. There is a duty to act. So, when the bill finally comes due for one of these post-quantum data breaches, who pays the price? Well, it's not just the company. This gets complicated. The liability here spreads out like a spiderweb, way beyond just the IT department. Let's take a look at who's really on the hook. All right, first up, the obvious one, the company itself. The primary liability is almost always going to land on the organization that was supposed to be protecting the information in the first place. No surprise there. But it definitely does not stop with the company. There's a huge global trend right now of holding corporate officers and directors personally accountable for cybersecurity failures. Regulators in the US and Europe are naming executives in their enforcement actions more and more. That means a CEO or board member who just ignored the quantum risk could find themselves personally on the line. Also in the line of fire, all the vendors and service providers. Just think about a cloud provider or a software company that sells its product by boasting about its strong encryption. Come 2030, if that encryption isn't quantum resistant, a court could easily see that as a misrepresentation. And that opens the door to a whole world of lawsuits for that vendor. And finally, and this one might surprise you, even professional advisors could be held liable. It's totally plausible that a law firm or a big consulting company could face a malpractice suit if they were advising a client on long-term risk and just failed to mention the foreseeable threat of quantum decryption. That duty of care is getting a lot wider. To really get a handle on how future courts are probably going to judge all this, we can just look at the past. How have they handled other delayed impact disasters? I mean, history is just littered with these kinds of things. Remember the Equifax breach? That was caused by failing to apply a known patch for a known problem. Or the Y2K bug. That required massive, proactive investment to prevent a catastrophe everyone saw coming. The pattern is always the same. When a disaster is predictable and a solution is available, the people who fail to act are the ones who look negligent in hindsight. And that really brings us to the final crucial takeaway here. The legal outcome of a data breach in the 2030s isn't going to be decided by the fancy technology of the future. It's going to be decided by the reasonable steps and the documented decisions that you make right now, today. So the question you have to ask yourself is, when that day comes, what's your defense going to be?